Welcome, listeners, viewers, and online guests to this, our next session in a series of Safe to Trade presentations. I'm your host, Kelvin Wood, and I'm a consultant EHP here at Safe to Trade. And over the coming months, we have a very special programme of topics and updates to tell you all you need to know about the scheme. We hope you enjoy these sessions. Thank you for joining us here this morning and in our virtual forum online. After the discussion today, our online guests will have the opportunity to ask some questions. So if that is you, have a think about what you want to ask, write your questions into the chat box, and I'll try my very best to put as many as possible to our guests, time permitting. Speaking of guests, today we're joined by two very special people. We've got Alec Kyriakides, who's the head of the Technical Standards Committee here at Safe to Trade, and Rob Easton, who's head of environmental health at Shield Safety, the certification body for Safe to Trade. Good morning to you both. Alec, thank you for joining us today. Rob, let's start off with some introductions for the listeners who've never met us before. Alec, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Kelvin. Absolutely delighted to be here today. I'm as you said, I'm currently chairing the Safe to Trade Technical Standards Committee, but in my day job, I'm an independent food safety consultant. I advise food businesses from multinationals and startups, and I work with government and industry groups nationally and globally. Previously, I worked for Sainsbury's for nearly 30 years, heading up the technical operations there, and just to get all my disclosures on the table, I'm currently a non-executive director at Camden BRI and also board trustee of the Institute of Food Science and Technology. I sit on the advisory committee on the microbiological safety of food, and I lecture at Queen's University Belfast. And finally, I chair the BRC Global Standards International Advisory Boards, and in what spare time I have, I write a few books on foodborne pathogens and their control. So I've written books on Salmonella and E. coli and botulinum and so on. So like I say, really pleased to be with you today.
Very grateful to have you. Thank you, Alec. And over to you, my good friend Rob, for the benefit
Hello,
of the viewers.
Kelvin.
Say hello.
So Rob Easton, head of environmental health at Shield Safety. It's very apparent from what I'm seeing on screen. Out of the three of us, I have the worst tasting Christmas jumpers, which I think we need to redefine. When you said wear a Christmas jumper, Alec, you're a lot more stylish than I am. I appear to have come as an elf and being stitched up. But hey, I look at the people who are attendees. There's some good friends on there, and I know I'll be getting messages soon about my tasting Christmas outfits. So head of environmental health at Shield Safety. I've been an EHP for over 20 years. And supporting food businesses with their food safety performance and culture. So my background is as a regulator, as an operator, as a consultant, as a food business operator, as I say. And when I view food safety and health and safety, I try and view it from multiple lenses, as well as my work with Shield Safety. I'm on the CIH Food Advisory Panel, supporting the CIH deciding on future food safety strategies. I also sit on their member professional and learning qualifications advisory board as well, looking at the universities and the next generation of EHPs. So it's my absolute pleasure to be here. And already the messages are coming in on WhatsApp asking what I'm wearing. And it's great to be on the webinar with you, Kelvin, and again with you, Alec.
Thank you, Rob. I suppose, again, I'd be remiss not to make the elf and safety joke, given your choice of jumpers today. which brings us to our topic today. Again, it's December. We can't not run a Christmas webinar in this, our series. So we're going to actually take a look at what Christmas with Safe to Trade actually means. So we're going to have a look at the function of the Technical Standards Committee, what they do overall within the world of Safe to Trade. And we're then going to talk a little bit about just this particularly festive, busy time within the hospitality industry and some kind of thoughts, considerations that businesses and food business operators should take in order to remain compliant. So Alec, let's start with the Technical Standards Committee. How did you first get involved with Safe to Trade?
Well, it goes back a little while, and I guess, like a lot of people on the call today, my passion is all about improving the safety of food for the consumer, and I've spent a lot of time developing and implementing standards in the food industry, particularly manufacturing and retail, but I was around when the very first back in the 90s, and that really step changed the standards in the manufacturing industry in particular. And what was apparent to me, as a kind of voluntary third party assurance standard, the BRCGS and other standards existed in manufacturing, retail, feed, farming, and so on. But the one sector that seemed to be devoid of this was the hospitality sector, and a sector that probably needed it as much, if not more, than the other sectors. And so when I left Sainsbury's a few years back, this was an area I really wanted to support. And so I initially got involved in the development of the Safe to Trade standard. And as the standard and the associated scheme rules were developed, those rules now known as the kind of protocol. So you have the standard and the protocol, the scheme rules itself. There was a need for an expert group to review the standard and requirements, and hence the technical privilege to be asked to chair the group. So that's over the last couple of years.
Lovely, thank you. So that's led you on to chairing the Technical Standards Committee. Can you tell us a little bit about the committee itself, who they are, what the functions of the committee do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I say, Technical Standards Committee, it's as you'd expect, it's made up of a number of experts from hospitality, the enforcement community, certification bodies, and as it happens, dare I say, as we've got an audience, we're just recruiting new members. So if anyone is interested, look out for the recruitment campaign. I'll hopefully get a chance to say a bit more about that in a bit. But in terms of the Technical Standards Committee and members at the moment, we have individuals like Claire Lysett from Milton Keynes Council, who sits on TSC to give us assured advice. Got Stuart Wiggins from Shield Safety to represent a certification body. And we also enlist experts in particular areas to support the main committee. So we've had Hazel Gowland, who many of you will know, supported work on allergens, and Selvarani Elahi, who is the deputy government chemist, whose input on food fraud. So a nice wide mix of expertise in terms of the committee members, and in terms of what we actually do, the Technical Standards Committee, I guess its primary function is to maintain and approve all of the aspects of the technical content of the standard. So, making sure they're up to date, thinking about the kind of latest legislative requirements, and also to think about kind of horizon scanning the legislative environment and what's coming down the line, looking at industry guides, external guides, and other standards to just identify areas to help evolve the standard. And I guess secondly, we're there to oversee the kind of formal release process of standard revisions to ensure that there's appropriate consultation, that we have communication with the relevant stakeholders, and that's all built into the requirements of the scheme protocol and the standard itself. And in my role as the chair of the Technical Standards Committee, I also sit on the Safe to Trade Independent Governance Board. So that works with the Technical Standards Committee to oversee the overall governance and integrity of the scheme. And I couldn't overemphasize the importance of that. because the things that group does is that aspects like overseeing the quality of the audits conducted by certification bodies against the standard. So that's making sure that things like surveillance audits are done, reviewing the competency and training requirements for safe to trade auditors, all of whom, as you'd expect, are qualified environmental health practitioners, and overseeing things that develop like appeals, complaints, even negative consumer feedback regarding businesses. So I guess the key point I'd make is that governance is an absolute for the Safe to Trade scheme, because it's that kind of provides every stakeholder, including whether you're a food business or the consumer, a regulator, you absolutely have to have confidence that any voluntary third-party assurance scheme is being managed and run effectively. And so the Technical Standards Committee, in combination with the Independent Governance Board, essentially do all of that for the scheme. So hopefully, Kelvin, I've given you a kind of pretty detailed overview of what it does. Yeah.
Thank you, Alec. Very comprehensive. And you're absolutely right. One of the main objectives of these monthly conversations that we're having is to build trust in the scheme with the various stakeholders, be it a consumer session, food business operators, or regulators themselves. So it's really enlightening to hear about those different pillars of governance that take place within the scheme. Can you give us a little bit of a flavour, some gossip about some of the things that you've been processing at the moment? What's new with the Technical Standards Committee?
Okay, well, as I said, one of the things that we do is look at what needs to happen to evolve the standard itself, and whilst we've got a version in operation at the moment, we're working on the next version that hopefully will be launched early in the new year. So the things that we've been looking at to add to the standard, so the enhancements, aspects of food fraud. So that's very topical at the moment, and we feel that it's important to reflect elements of that in the standard. Both elements in relation to what our expectations are for food businesses in terms of their food fraud, but also providing some best practice ideas in terms of resilience in this area. So we're adding elements of tools that can be used to mitigate fraud for food businesses who are using the scheme. And we've also looked at adding an element on food donation, something again that's very topical, particularly this time of year, but will be in the new standard, and really just reiterating the points that should be covered when donating food, because sometimes you do occasionally go into businesses where the kind of food, the food for donation isn't quite under the same control as the food for normal service, and so it's important that we've added to the standard what the expectations are there. Other things that we're doing and coming down the line, a scheme like this, we feel it's important for it to be credited, and so we've been working very closely with UCAS to look at the elements that need to be incorporated for ISO 17065 eligibility. So that's coming down the line. We're also always looking at bits that exist at the moment and how we can enhance them. So particularly areas that we're getting feedback on from certification bodies in relation to the kind of imminent risk element, and how to ensure that we're driving consistency in how that's identified and processed. So broadly speaking, that's what everyone can expect coming down the line very shortly.
Wonderful, thank you. So Sticking with the A Christmas Carol theme, we've looked at the ghost of Christmas past and present. Looking ahead into the future for 2024, what are some of the things that are going to be upcoming next year?
Well, I think the one thing, and I alluded to this earlier, the one thing that we are doing in terms of the Technical Standards Committee is we're broadening out our reach. So we're starting a campaign this week to recruit new members to the Technical Standards Committee. So we're interested in those from local authorities, from food businesses. And the other thing that we'll be doing with the standard is we're going to encompass health and safety as well. So as we do that, when we look to incorporate that in the standard, we clearly want to ensure that we have the relevant experts on the Technical Standards Committee to support that. So we're particularly interested in those who have expertise both in the food safety area and health and safety, and we're looking obviously to recruit members there. So if there is anyone interested who's on the call, then please do reach out, and I'm hoping that that some of the campaign material will be available to those after this webinar.
Wonderful, very exciting. Thank you, Alec. I'm sure we'll put some of the information of any relevant links to follow to get in touch if you are interested in joining the committee there, as Alec just mentioned in the comments. So look out for those after this session finishes. Thank you, Alec. And Rob, so let's talk Christmas. Here we are, we're 2 weeks out from Christmas, and fingers crossed all of hospitality is going to be busy to the sound of ringing tills and those Christmas bookings, making loads of money. As a food business operator yourself, Rob, for many, many years, can you tell us a little bit about the planning process for Christmas within hospitality? What goes on?
Yeah, Kev, I think probably the biggest surprise for me when I went from that EH role and the safety role and into an operations role was just how early Christmas planning starts. Indeed, probably planning is starting now, ready for next year. And I remember in the business, we'd have our food development team in May, would be donning their Christmas jumpers, slightly tastier than this. They would have their Spotify playlist on in May. You know, they'd be doing it in spring, early summer, and they were planning their Christmas. So hopefully for many of the people on this webinar, you know, Christmas, the planning is well and truly sorted. They all of it's been put down many months ago. But when I think about planning, when we look at getting ready for Christmas, I had a colleague who used to have a plaque above the door going into his office, and it said proper planning prevents poor performance. So it's there was a 6th P in there as well, but we'll just take the 5 Ps, and that's what I look at when we're planning anything, and we're looking to make a change. So first of all, the first P is product. What is it we're selling? What are we trying to do? What is it that we're getting from our supplier? So what is the offer to our guest, and what is the product? And if it's a different product or a different style of product, how do we have to handle it differently? How do we have to prepare it, cook it, serve it differently? So the first P is product. The next one is property. So have we got the right kit in the right place, doing the right thing? Is it working fully? So property, and we know, again, we'll bring a change in service. Suddenly we're doing 50, 60, 70 covers, but the past has only got a room for 6 plates, or what we need is a gravy to go on it, but we don't have a bain marie. And I've been into many businesses where they realise that on the day they're doing their first Christmas lunch. So it's about making sure the property is right, in the right place, doing the right thing. The next thing is process. There'll be changes to the process that you bring upon yourself. So again, looking at a new dish, a new cooking technique, a new service style, a new way of ordering. So they're the processes that the business are changing themselves. But at Christmas, there's processes that are changed externally. So things that you're reliant upon, things that just normally happen on a set day, what are changing. So look at bin collections, you're looking at food deliveries, those things that are put onto you as a business, and make sure ahead. And again, how many times we've been to restaurants and we've been to pubs and hotels, and the rubbish is piling up outside, and they go, oh yeah, we didn't change our bin collection, or no one told us they weren't collecting for a week. So think about those processes that just normally happen, ordering time for suppliers. What's going to be different over the Christmas period? The next P will be people, or your team. It's about having the right people in the right place, knowing and doing the right thing. And of course, that is a problem at Christmas. We'll see disruption. I'll talk about that a little bit later, I think. But it's about making sure you've got enough people in, and also giving those team breaks. We had a webinar a couple of weeks ago at Shield Safety around mental well-being over Christmas and the importance of giving people time to recover. And the gentleman who was on there presenting says, think of it as an athlete. You need time to recover. You need a chance for your body and your mental well-being to reset for the next shift. And then the last P, well, it could be multiple. It's prove it, paperwork, protect yourself, whichever one you want it to be. But the main thing is write it down. So you've got a new product, you've got the new process there, you've got your people being trained. Prove it, and the way you prove it is have it down on paper. So that would be my slightly updated 5 Ps getting ready for Christmas.
Beautiful. Thanks, Rob. I'm haunted by running many Christmas shifts and periods in my operator days. And you're right, even just moving all of the tables around in the restaurants to accommodate these large teams, before you know it, you're blocking and obstructing all your fire exits.
Yes, yeah.
Something to be mindful of. So in terms of safe to trade, all of those things that you've just talked through are elements of the standard that we're attempting to keep maintained throughout this period. In the busy running up and in accordance with the standard, what do some of these changes actually mean then, Rob?
Yeah, I think go back to people. People's a huge change, isn't it? You've got new staff in, it may be temporary staff that you're bringing in. It may be a change of role. Someone who previously worked in one part of your business is moving over, which is great. You know, it's development, it's training, it's good to do. But in doing that, are they adequately trained or supervised? And we'll remember, I know I look at the delegates here, we've got a lot of EHPs, a lot of safety practitioners on here as well as operators. And it's that if they're not fully trained, if they are changing in that role, but there is supervision there. And that's true supervision. That's not just a chef who comes in occasionally on an 8-10 hour shift and says, how are you doing? It is absolutely, do they have the competency to undertake the task, or do they have someone there who's supervising them in that task? So definitely think about team, bringing on new team, change of role, and then making sure they're competent to undertake their task for food safety. Then I look at the standard, and there's a big part around their suppliers. Changing suppliers, reassurances from suppliers. So if you're bringing in a new product or a new supplier into the business, how do you know that the assurances around that? Are they a member of an assurance scheme? Are you doing your own supplier audit on them? And again, and I've seen this so many times with businesses, is it's the same supplier, but it's a different product. And you go to them and say, can you get us? And they go, of course we can. But actually it's outside of their assurance. It's something they don't handle ordinarily. So it's making sure, even if it's an assured supplier and one you've used often, that product they're bringing in, do they have assurance for that? So look at your suppliers. And then the final one to tie it all together is the food safety management system. Yeah, this is ensuring, reviewing it, that it fits the operation that you are going to be doing and not just the operation that you've been doing in the past. So it's that quick check through. If you've got the safe methods, do you have the safe methods for the processes that you're undertaking? And then do you have the documentation to back it up, to get your due diligence defense off the back of it?
Absolutely, absolutely. I recall the menu engineering process for Christmas, Rob, from back in the day myself. From a marketing perspective, you know, to attract those new customers in, and the point of difference between your competitors, it's not uncommon to see people tempted to use various food claims all over the menu when it comes to the provenance of the food that they're serving. So whether it's Atlantic salmon or Norfolk black turkey, what are some of the key messages from Safe to Trade that food business operators should take into account for these menu planning purposes and marketing?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Calvin. It's a hyper competitive market, isn't it? All the Christmas menus are out. They've been publicised for months. Offices are making decisions and trying to pitch. You know, the food business is pitching for that elusive booking of 20, 50, 100. And there is the temptation to over elaborate. And I'll share a quick story with you. Again, back in my operation days, our head of development, he was a fantastic, incredibly creative chef, one of the best I've worked with. But he proclaimed, and we had our menus printed, that we would have Exmoor free range turkey, and it was on all the menus. And I'm like, there isn't such a thing as an Exmoor free range turkey. We can't find one. So one of the first one, and we eventually, by chance, we found a farm in the middle of Exmoor when we were driving to a pub that had a sign up saying free range turkey. So but we found some, but not a lot, let's put it like that. So that food claims is really, really important. So the creativity, the entrepreneurial, of the menu development is back it up. And if you're making a claim about regionality, if you're making a claim about aging, if you're making any claim about that nature or substance of the product, is be able to back it up and be able to prove it. And that's where the record keeping comes in as well. So it's great to be creative, but if you're making any specific claims around that food, make sure that you can back it up. So that would be the first one. Allergens, obviously, is a big focus for food businesses now, and understandably. So it's any change in the menu, any dishes that may have been on a previous menu and they've been slightly tweaked for the Christmas menu. We see that quite often, but in doing so, have you updated the spec for any changes? Have you updated the allergen matrix? So that's really, really important. And like I say, it's one that we are constantly concerned about. Businesses are constantly concerned about. And then the last one, which is a slightly new bit of, it's a newer bit of legislation, is obviously around calories. And there is that dispensation for menus less than 30 days. But I was at the R200 a couple of weeks ago, talking to a lot of operators there at the awards, and they're saying our Christmas started in the second week of November. So the time of Christmas being 1st of December is when your bookings start. That's long gone. It's early on in November. So those Christmas menus, I know it's too late now. We're in the midst of it, but when we're thinking for next year is, okay, if we're not able to get the calorie information now, these menus are running for longer than 30 days.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rob. I'm feeling like the Grinch talking about calories at Christmas. Surely we should be ignoring those, but we can't ignore our legal requirements. So we planned for Christmas and New Year. It's all planned out carefully. We've arrived in December. From your experience, Rob, what are some of the issues food business operators face? What are some of the things that could not go to plan?
Yeah, there's many, isn't there? There's many things that I think we'll go back to team staffing is an issue. And that can be because it's brought on by weather. It can be brought on by illness. We know we're in the midst of a norovirus peak at the moment, and I'm sure Alec will want to talk about that as well later as a microbiologist there. So staffing is a challenge, and we know it's been a challenge for years in hospitality. So actually, we're building up quite a resilience here. We've proved that we can overcome this, but it's building in that little bit of breathing space if possible. But we know it's a challenge. I've already talked about mental well-being. For the team, it is a challenge. We're dealing with new menus, changes in suppliers, changes in processes, peak bookings, all of these challenges for our team, as well as thinking about at Christmas, they may be thinking about family, being at home, and where are they when we're celebrating? They're bashing the pans, they're on the pass, they're working extra long hours. So I think when we're thinking about what could go wrong, is think about that mental well-being of your team, how you can support them, what can you do now, those breaks, that downtime, that listening ear to support them through what is a challenging time. So that can definitely go wrong. Customers, anyone who's worked in hospitality, we know the great British public are very good at bringing challenges all along the way, and it is a time of being demanding, but it's the last minute changes. And again, thinking about allergens in particular, they're communicating it, and we've had to support clients and businesses with this, where allergens are communicated at the time of ordering. That's fantastic. The guest says, well, I've told you at that point. But what the food business doesn't do is then communicate that through to the day, and there's this loss of information. And again, with allergens, it's so important. So it's, if you're implementing any change in process, any change in booking, dealing with large numbers, is making sure that there's no gaps there. And allergens, more than anything, is the one that information, that golden thread, has to flow through from the point of booking through to the food preparation, through to the point of service. So it's just one that you've got to be absolutely on top of.
Yeah, especially if you're submitting a pre-order from like several weeks before you visit, and that's where you give your allergen information over. Yeah,
and we see it with conference and banqueting is a classic, whereby they say, well, the allergens were made aware at the time of booking, but how does that communicate through to the kitchen team? How does it communicate through to the waiting team? Where is that double check on the day, just to be absolutely sure? And one of the things that we do is we work with a lot of clients, and we see a lot of times where there are issues, just the sheer number of guests that our clients serve, and we can learn from that, and we can share those experiences.
Well, so all very day-to-day kind of normal operations, and being proactive in the planning and reactive to things that happen in life. These are all kind of pinch points within the Safe to Trade standard, are they not, Alex? So, bringing it back to, where do these kind of things live within the standard?
Yeah, that's it's been very interesting listening to Rob, because I mean you're right, the standard covers the requirements very clearly for elements that Rob has touched on, right the way from deliveries, storage, cooking, hot holding, cross-contamination, and the standard is pretty explicit in the requirements for those, and I think the real challenge, as Rob says, is driven by this huge increase in volume, and essentially the need to use what generally will be the same equipment and the same premises amidst what is this big increase in volume and throughput in the kitchen, often with, again, Rob mentioned it, with temporary staff. And so, that kind of combination builds a lot of potential for problems if these things aren't planned properly and executed properly. And I think one of the things maybe to touch on, I mean, and I used to see it in retail, and I imagine it's the same here. Increased throughput generally requires increased temporary storage. So you do see a number of kind of temporary storage areas being set up for the volume of ingredients, and the standard is very clear, whether it's temporary or permanent food storage areas. The attention's got to be there in terms of their cleanliness and suitability for the purpose intended. And along with that, I mentioned the kind of deliveries and the challenges that come at this time of year, because you're often getting deliveries at unusual hours. They're not coming at the routine regular points that people are used to, and it's important, and the standard is very clear on the need for the regimes to be maintained for deliveries, to be checked, checking the standards of hygiene are correct, the quality's met, that if they're chilled products, that it's temperature monitored, that you're looking at the pack integrity and the appropriate shelf life, and the all-important signs of infestation. All of those are detailed in the standard, and like I say, are as relevant over Christmas as they are any other time. But I guess a couple of the big risks over Christmas are really around cooking and cross-contamination, and not just because of the pressure on the kitchen in itself, which clearly does drive the potential for shortcuts and not doing what would ordinarily be the case, but often because of the kind of unusual size of some of the things that are being cooked. I mean, some of these, the size of some of these turkeys, are uppermost in my mind. I remember occasions. Actually, it's not so much on the catering side, but it was catering for staff lunches in stores, and the oven weren't big enough to cook the turkey, so they'd look for other ovens like the bakery oven to cook the turkey, and of course, so it's this element that Rob mentioned in terms of planning. It's thinking about where are those things going to be stored, and also a lot of turkeys are brought in frozen. Where are they going to be defrosted? The planning for this is so important, and the regimes, the temperature control, and the potential for cross-contamination in storage and defrost is I can say history is littered with examples of outbreaks of illness associated with poor storage and inadequate defrosting of turkeys. Many a Christmas has been spoiled by that, and so the issues of handling and the potential for cross-contamination are very well articulated in the standard and the expectations. Funny enough, actually, on the point of cooking and cross-contamination, I don't know whether anyone saw the Jamie Oliver Christmas program just gone on Monday, but I was hugely encouraged to see he was washing his hands after handling the turkey on every occasion. On handling raw meat, he was at pains to be seen to be washing his hands, which was fantastic to see, and a really good example for anyone watching. And actually, also, he used a temperature probe when he cooked his turkey, and advised that that he needed to hit 70 degrees C before resting the bird. So the messages are getting through.
Small wins, Alec. Small wins.
I know.
That's right. And,
It's a good point, actually. When Rob was mentioning about menu specifications and substitutions at the point of delivery, if you are sent, dare I say, a bigger bird than you've ordered, your time temperature combinations, your cooking method may not be sufficient for that product. So, not falling back on those and making sure you're doing the proper verification and temperature checks using your calibrated sanitized probes is key. So nice to see that it's getting through to the media. We do often see just a little bit of rinsing of the fingers sometimes if we're lucky, don't we? Wonderful.
Kevin, can I just build on some points that Alec made there that I thought were really, really interesting in the standard, and just saw that approach, and obviously his learnings from retail. Is what we're talking about here is ready for revenue. I know we're talking about Christmas, and Christmas brings uniqueness, shall we say, of particularly the larger parties. For lots of businesses, obviously the weather provides its challenges, but what we're talking about is ready for revenue, and this could be the same at peak trading at Easter. It could be the peak trading at summer, which I know a lot of our businesses clients will be going, we've nailed Christmas. We've almost packed away the decorations because we're now into Easter. But when we're looking at that ready for revenue, and when we talk about it, when we see it going wrong, and Alec, there's some very high profile cases where we know, particularly large scale catering, whereby there has been a desire to do more than they're capable of. And often when I look at this, we look at resources and capabilities matching aspirations. So a business has an aspiration, a desire to deliver something, and that aspiration may be scale. It may be driven by a financial need. It may be driven by a target. It may be driven by, actually, they're a lovely family and we just want to fit them in. It may be driven by the desire to do a bigger menu, a more complicated dish. They've seen someone, a celebrity chef, do something, so we're going to give it a go in the kitchen. So they have these aspirations. And when it goes wrong is when those aspirations don't match the capabilities and resources. And that capabilities might be the capability of the team, the training of the team. It might be the size of the oven, Alec, as you were saying, that wasn't big enough for the turkey. And over again, what we see is this aspiration to deliver something or a scale, and the inability or the equipment to do it safely. And in those, and it happens every time when you're looking at these large scale food poisoning outbreaks. It will almost inevitably come back to that resource and capability. So what we'll be saying is, what do you do is where you can increase your capability, you can change the capability of your team, you can train, but that takes time and that has to be tested. You can look at new delivery methods. So if you're looking at turkey, keeping it Christmassy, go from that large turkey, you go to a boned and rolled carcass. So suddenly you don't need to be using the bakery oven, and that it can be done in your normal kitchen. And then, so that's delivery mechanism. And the final one is actually cutting your cloth accordingly and going, look, we can do it as a maximum. We can do 60, 90, 100, whatever it is in a sitting. We have to bring it back. We can deliver this menu. We can deliver it using these goods that are pre-prepared. So like I say, always look at it's great to be aspirational, it's great to be pushing, but all the time come back to those resources and capabilities. Are we capable of doing it? And if I think about the operators on the webinar, I think about the times when I was running food businesses, we'd always say your best marketing for next year, be that Easter, summer or Christmas, is delivering an awesome Easter, summer or Christmas. You deliver it badly, and unsafe is badly, but you deliver low quality, long wait times, burnt potatoes. Guess what? Your Christmas bookings next year will drop. Deliver an awesome Christmas. And I saw it with the businesses I ran over a number of years. You deliver a great Christmas, and each year you just built on the last. So yes, it makes great food safety sense, but this stuff is your best marketing. Build that reputation of being able to deliver at peak times.
Thanks, Rob. Hopefully we've given the operators on the session today a lot to think of, and hopefully a lot of clarity of the mental checklist of, yes, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that. We're safe and good to go. As well as Christmas, the other thing that winter likes to throw at us is norovirus. So it's something that I'd just like to spend a little bit of time discussing now. Alec, for those of us who can't remember norovirus, it was the thing before COVID, wasn't it? Remind us a little bit about the virus.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, I'm a microbiologist as well as sitting on various groups, but I'll leave Rob to tell you about the kind of hygiene controls, but I can say a few words about the virus and its kind of peculiarities. But I think you'll all recognise norovirus is the largest cause of infectious intestinal disease in the UK. And Rob mentioned that, you know, reports are up. They're up about 7% over the seasonal average this year, and so there has been a lot of it about. And as a virus, it's you know, it's very small. It's about 30 nanometers, which is about 10 to 100 times smaller than a typical bacterium. And that gives it certain special properties, one of which is that it can sit in aerosols for a long time. The infectious dose of a norovirus is somewhere between 10 and 100 viruses to cause an infection, which is exceptionally low, particularly when you consider that someone with a norovirus infection can shed billions of viruses per gram of feces and vomit. And so, and anyone who has had a norovirus infection will know that, you know, the vomiting can come on quite suddenly, and can be quite projectile, can be quite forceful. And that means that aerosols are created when someone's sick, and they're often sick very close to where they are, so often on the floor, and even in the toilet, actually. You know, the virus can aerosolize and remain in the air for very long periods of time. And like I say, it can take a long time for those viruses then to settle from the aerosols onto surfaces. Well after someone has kind of cleaned and disinfected the pool of vomit that's kind of in front of them. And I'm sure all of you have got these kind of experiences where, you know, people focus on, you know, what's evident, what's visible, but it's what's not visible that is going to present the significant risk going forward as the virus drops onto surfaces that you know, that might cause indirect transfer. And of course, with norovirus, you get a lot of direct person-to-person transfer because of this, you know, from hands and touching, etc. But you also get a lot of indirect, where the virus lands on handles, on equipment, on utensils that haven't been disinfected. So I guess I mean, I'll like I say, I was going to leave Rob to talk about some of the controls, but the key for me in terms of norovirus control when someone has been sick is actually whole room disinfection, and not just, you know, the pool of vomit. The virus itself, because it doesn't have an envelope, I won't talk about the virology too much, but because it doesn't have an envelope, it's actually quite resistant to alcoholic sanitizers. And so they're not very effective. You know, so when you were using hand sanitizers that are alcohol based, it's not great. Having said that, the principle of washing with soap and water actually is still a good one, because just reducing numbers in that way is pretty effective. But it is destroyed by chlorine-based disinfectants and quaternary ammonium. So you know, they're very effective. But on that note, I'll stop talking about the virus, and Rob, why don't you say something about the more general controls?
Thank you, Alec. Yeah, so Rob, I mean, Alec covered a lot of the cleaning related and disinfection controls. Are there any other controls that operators should employ to reduce the likelihood of outbreaks?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first thing is don't have a problem so that you have to manage an exclusion of workers that are exhibiting illness. Now that's and we know this is well tested, isn't it? 48 hours fitness to work standard. It's been with us for many years. But it's really, really important. And then again, there's many cases, high profile cases, where team members have felt compelled to work. They've gone into the business, they've been ill, and then it's spread like wildfire through the business. So it's really easy to say, but how do you make that happen? Because there's team may feel they have to work because they don't want to let others down. It's a great opportunity. They might be in a great restaurant and this is their big break. They don't want to be seen as being absent. And of course, financially, it's a costly time of year, and there's just this need to work. So it's easy to say you exclude people, but in practice, it's a heck of a lot harder. And that's where the role of the supervisor and the manager is absolutely key. That's about knowing your team. That's about looking at your team, looking, are they, do they look pale? Are they going to the toilet often? Rushing off. It's looking for the signs and then challenging on those signs. So something that's been there as the fitness to work as a standard for many years, go back to it, but it's down to the supervisors and the managers. You really, really need to be on it and be watching. So that'll be the first thing I'll be saying. It was interesting, Alec, you picked up on the hand sanitizers, and but you still go into restaurants, you still go into to these places, and there's this hand sanitizer on the surface, and everyone goes, well, we must be fine, we're using that. And actually, I think and there's papers to suggest it's counterproductive because people are now reliant upon the alcohol hand rubs, and it's not effective. So go back to what we know, which is effective, which is hot and cold running water and soap. So yes, hand sanitizers are there, but actually they can be counterproductive. One of the things that we've learned is around multiple operators, so you have a number of sites, is moving team around. So you have absenteeism in one business. What you do is you drop another chef in, fantastic, then you find out it's norovirus, that chef's gone back to their base restaurant. Or you have regional managers, delivery people, these people that move around the businesses, and what they do, and again it's well documented, is that they'll take it from norovirus. So you've gone from one site to it being spread through a region or a group of outlets. So think carefully about how you're moving, and if you do have a case of norovirus, you may have to say, well, actually what we do is we take the hit in that one location and we protect the rest. I think, Alec, you've covered off the cleaning really well, so I won't repeat. The one other thing I'd say is go back to what we know about old food hygiene, and was the intervening space between the toilet and the food room, and again the importance of that, of having that space, good ventilation, keeping the door closed. So again, if someone is going to the toilet, if they are being ill in that area, reduce the likelihood of the virus spreading into the food room. So what a lovely note to finish our Christmas celebrations on, talking about norovirus and vomit and stuff. But hey, there's many practitioners on this webinar, so I'm sure they're quite comfortable with it.
and if people do love it that much, Rob, where can they find out some additional information? Have we got any links or anything to share?
Yeah, so chat to us. We've got the Shield Guide to dealing with norovirus outbreaks. Obviously, if there's clients on here, you've got Adrian and his Merry team on the safety advice line. They are unfortunately only too familiar with supporting people when there's cases of norovirus, but what it means is they're there to help. We've supported many times. So if you need any information, or if you're a client and you believe you've got a case of norovirus or norovirus outbreak, then please do use the safety advice line team. They're fantastic EHPs and there to support.
Cool, thank you, Rob. Alec, thank you for your insight today. It's been very exciting and useful. I'd like to take this opportunity now to throw to some questions from our online guests in the forum. So starting off, we've got a question from Aaron Morley. Thank you, Aaron. How long will it take for a viral aerosol to drop from suspension in the air? Sounds like a test question in an exam, that. So I guess that one's for you, Alec.
Can we have it as a multiple choice, please?
Well, it's an interesting one, actually, because it's kind of less to do with the virus than it is to do with the aerosol. So it depends whether someone sneezed, vomited, coughed, and spoken. in terms of vomit, you'll get a variety of sizes. I remember some research at Camden BRI and also other published studies looking at how far aerosols do travel and how long they take to land. But we are generally talking several hours for them to drop out of the air, and up to 7-8 hours it can be. Having said that, the majority drop much quicker than that because the aerosols, particularly vomit, are generally larger, and so they'll drop out quicker. But it can be over, certainly over an hour for the aerosols to drop and the viruses with them.
Thank you. Longer than you might think. We've got an anonymous question here saying, as an EHP, how can I get involved in the future development of the standard? So maybe recap what you said earlier, Alec, about the recruitment push.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of in terms of what we're looking at the moment, we're looking to recruit individuals both from enforcement, from food businesses. We're interested in those who've got food safety and also health and safety experience because of the move that we want for the standard going forward. So we just encourage anyone to apply. I hope that we all be able to get the recruitment material out to those individuals. So put in a application. There is a formal application process, and that results in a shortlist of individuals, and then I'll do a kind of one-to-one interview with those who are interested, just to make sure that we're all a right fit for them and they're a right fit for us. So that's kind of the process going forward.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know it's kind of John Barnes's baby, who's not really here on the session with us today, but there's also the stakeholder engagement groups, isn't there, as well, if people want to get involved but don't formally want to be part of the Technical Standards Committee or apply for it. So yeah, any insight on how that would work?
Yeah, absolutely. So the stakeholder engagement groups, again, as they say, they cover all of the stakeholders, from regulators, enforcers, food businesses, certification bodies, and they're there to allow us to capture feedback on how the standard is progressing in use, but also views of what might need to be included going forward. And we have a number of stakeholder engagement groups each year, and I think that we have a Safe to Trade forum in London on the 30th of January.
That's right.
Where where if there are those who are interested in joining the stakeholder engagement group, again, I hope that we can actually give some of the details of how you can get involved. But we have a LinkedIn forum where I think you can probably apply to become involved. But for those who are interested, whether it's through the Technical Standards Committee or through stakeholder engagement forums, we'll put out the relevant material where you can get more information to formally progress after.
Wonderful.
the webinar.
One more question here. We say, how do we have how are we ensuring that Safe to Trade auditors have appropriate experience and competencies? That's come in anonymously.
Okay, so I mean, in that's another one for me. But I think that it's absolutely key. I talked about kind of governance and integrity, and given that the audit is conducted by an environmental health professional, it is absolutely key that those individuals are first meeting the requirements, and so any certification body who who essentially delivers to the standard, has to ensure that there's a kind of robust quality assurance system in place to ensure that, firstly, the auditors, are meeting the requirements, so evidence of professional registration, training, competency records of individuals. They all go on Safe to Trade Environmental Health Professional Register, so that we know that we know everyone has actually gone through the appropriate processes. There's ongoing supervision of auditors that includes witnessed audits. There's a competency sign-off for new auditors. There's a review of audit report quality monitoring. So we kind of look at a selection of the audit reports to make sure that, one, they're meeting minimum standards, but also there's consistency across the audits. And there's a requirement for witnessed audits of each environmental health professional at a defined frequency to ensure we've got that kind of consistency and calibration. So a lot of emphasis is put on the competence of the auditor as part of the scheme.
Wonderful, thank you, Alec. And I think we've got time for one last question. So John's asked, Rob, where have you got your jumper from?
Yeah, thank you, John. That came over from WhatsApp, and I'm proud to say this was a gift from our good friend Ryan, who we had a trip to Dublin, and I was made to wear this on the plane through security and for our time in Dublin. So it's a thing of beauty, isn't it? So John, I'll ask Ryan where he got it from. I'm sure they probably didn't sell many of them at the time, and they've got lots of stock left.
You've been done, Rob. Wonderful. We're coming up for time now, and that's all we've got time for this morning. So Alec, Rob, thank you again for your time and for joining us this morning. Thank you for our online guests who have joined us for the live broadcast session, and to those listening or viewing retrospectively once this has been posted to social media. We hope you'll join us next month for another Safe to Trade conversation. But in the meantime, have a very, very happy Christmas. For all the food business operators out there, I hope you have a very successful and safe and profitable Christmas. And we will see you again in 2024. Happy Christmas, everyone.